Hey everyone, Lily from Sweet to Savory here. Soft, buttery, fluffy cinnamon rolls such as these ones. With holidays around the corner, these are perfect to serve as dessert. My recipe makes 15 rolls, but if you want to make fewer rolls, you can divide the recipe in half. Believe it or not, yeast dough is actually not hard to make. I have 6 tips that I will give you in order to make a successful dough for these cinnamon rolls. So don't be afraid to try them. They're definitely better than Cinnabon, in my humble opinion. I usually make a big batch when I have my friends come over and they're gone by the end of the night. So they're definitely worth making from scratch. If you want to learn how to make these, stick with me until the end and I will show you how to make them. Tip number 1 for a foolproof yeast dough is to use a warm liquid since it will help speed up your dough's rising time. Add butter, brown sugar, salt, vanilla extract, and milk in a large heat-proof bowl. Heat the bowl in the microwave for 1 minute and stir to combine everything. Then heat the bowl for another 30 seconds in the microwave and stir until the butter melts completely. If you have a food thermometer, check the temperature. It should be between a minimum of 110 degrees Fahrenheit and a maximum of 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Any hotter than that and you risk killing the yeast. If you don't have a food thermometer, you can test the temperature by dipping your finger into the liquid. It should feel lukewarm and not hot to the touch. Tip number 2. Whether you're using instant or active dry yeast, test it to ensure it's still alive. Yeast is an essential ingredient for the dough to become soft and fluffy after you bake it. Without it, there is no point in making the dough for the cinnamon rolls. To test the yeast, mix 1 envelope or 2 1/4 teaspoon yeast, 1 teaspoon sugar, a 1/4 cup warm water in a small bowl, and wait 5 minutes. If it foams up, the yeast is still active. If there's no foam, save yourself the frustration and buy new yeast. Always store opened yeast in the refrigerator to extend its shelf life. For tip number 3, when a recipe calls for room temperature ingredients such as eggs or butter, set your ingredients on the counter a few hours before you get started. In your stand mixer bowl, fitted with a paddle attachment, add 3 cups bread flour, warm liquid butter, and yeast. Mix everything at low speed until combined. Then add 1 room temperature egg at a time and scrape down the side of the bowl in between each addition until all the eggs are incorporated. Add the remaining bread flour and switch to the dough hook. For tip number 4, knead your dough for at least 10 to 15 minutes. Gluten can only develop if you give it enough kneading time to make the dough more elastic and stretchy with longer gluten strands. So why do we need gluten to form? It's because it helps trap air or gas that the yeast produces. This then results in a fluffy cinnamon roll after it's baked. Your dough should not be sticky to the touch. If it is, add a tablespoon of flour, knead it for another 2 minutes, and check again. Do this until your dough is not sticky anymore. Finally, add a tablespoon of oil to a large bowl. Shape your dough into a ball and roll it around in the bowl to coat it with the oil. Loosely cover the top with plastic wrap and place a clean hand towel over it. Tip number 5, preheat your oven on the lowest heat setting possible for 10 minutes. Usually, this is around 170 degrees Fahrenheit. Turn off the heat and place the covered bowl in the oven. By doing so, you're creating a warm environment for the yeast to thrive and help the dough rise. Keep the door closed and set your timer to 1.5 hours. This method of proofing the dough is what I've used for many years successfully. After the first rise, your dough should have doubled in size. Lightly puncture the dough with your fingertips to release the air inside. I don't know about you, but I find this so satisfying to do. Lightly dust your counter with flour. Knead and roll your dough into a log, then sprinkle a little flour onto your rolling pin and dough and roll the dough to a rectangular shape with a dimension of 26 inches in width, 20 inches in length, and a 1 centimeter thickness. To make the filling, melt the cubed unsalted butter in the microwave for 30 seconds, then add in the brown sugar, ground cinnamon, and salt and mix everything to combine. Spread the cinnamon butter filling with your spatula to cover the entire surface area of your rolled out dough. Make sure to leave a 2-inch gap at the edge closest to you, since this gap will be your seam once you roll everything together. We're close to the finish line. Start at the top and tightly roll the dough inward toward you, ending at the 2-inch gap. Divide the log in half with a knife to make it easier for you to cut it into individual rolls. Brush the outside of each log with melted unsalted butter. In the past, I used a knife or a dough scraper to divide my cinnamon rolls, but found that it flattened the roll slightly and squeezed some of the fillings out. My new method is much easier by using a long sewing thread. You end up with clean, perfectly shaped cinnamon rolls. Lightly mark your dough with a knife or a dough scraper into even sections, and then cut each section with the thread. Place individual rolls facing up into a 9 by 13-inch baking dish brushed with melted butter. You can place the rolls about 2 centimeters apart. And my final tip number 6 is for you to prove your rolls for a second rise. I know that you might be tempted to stick the buns into the oven immediately after you've cut them, but giving them a little more time to rise again is a must and will be worth the wait for the soft and fluffy end result you're looking for. Place them back into your pre-warmed oven like you did for the first rise, or leave them on your counter covered. Set your timer for 30 minutes. Rolls will double in volume and swell into each other. Bake cinnamon rolls at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 to 35 minutes or until they're golden brown. Allow the buns to cool for 15 minutes before adding your icing. You can make a regular glaze with icing sugar, vanilla extract, and cream, or add cream cheese to it to add a depth of flavor. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, comment down below, and be sure to subscribe. See you in my next video.